Shireen, that now brings me to the next part. I want to move on to the next part of the conversation. Earlier on, when you were beginning your career and being interviewed as that Girl Friday, you then got not the Girl Friday position, you told us, you then got another position where you were then involved with media buying. And the person who employed you was a big name in the industry at the time, and you were mentored. Is that what inspired you then early on to do what you're doing currently? Because you are mentoring a number of young people in different parts of the continent.
Yes, I am. That's a very interesting story as well, because it's not something that I planned. It's not something that I believed in. I think in my entire career, what I learned in every organization that I joined, I would always find, and someone said this to me a few years ago, that I was very good at finding my horse in an environment. And when you find your horse, get on that horse and ride it. And that is mentorship. Find the person who's been in the organization for a very long time, that is a respected person, that understands the industry in and out. Align yourself with that person, because that's the person that becomes your mentor without realizing that it's your mentor. And I've always done that over the years in my career, in different environments, in different businesses, whether it was just, someone that understood economics better than I did, I would learn something very new from them. I think for me, a few years ago, I think in my very early 30s, I had a life-changing moment. And, life-changing moment gives you a different perspective in life. And it was very good for me, because having this life-changing moment in not knowing what your future will look like, coming out of that, I changed the narrative and what it is that I wanted to do. And when I was going through that life-changing moment, I was at the SABC and I worked on a TV show called Heartlines. And we got Mandela at the time to endorse Heartlines. It was all around creating, good values. So 8 weeks, 8 values, and creating one national conversation. And it was all about driving good in people, driving this narrative of being good and respectful and sharing, and no matter what the circumstances are. And at that time, going through a very dreadful or deadful situation as I was, and not telling the crew or the team that I worked on that I actually, was going through this experience, it changed my outlook in life. It changed everything about how I see things. For me, it's about empowering someone and not feeling afraid that they're going to take my skills away from me. For me, it's about sharing as much as I can, because if I empower someone else, I leave my legacy in that way, and that's kind of how it started. And it never really hit me until you hit trying times, or people hit trying times. I've had so many people in my entire career come up to me and say, I'd really like you to mentor me. And I said, I don't know what mentorship is. I'm a terrible mentor. How do you start? How do you do things, And I must say, over the years, in terms of mentoring people and making sure that they're okay and I keep them close to me, has just become such a natural thing. And whether I do it in South Africa, whether I do it in Zambia, whether I do it in Zimbabwe, it's, technology has allowed me now to expand that knowledge, and I'm very happy to do that.
Now, do you mentor in your specific people, the young people there in Zambia and Zimbabwe and elsewhere, who are in marketing, or you mentor any young person who reaches out to you and says, I need help, you are my role model, I need you to mentor me?
I'm very specific, because, we've got very limited time, and, given our everyday jobs that we've got, people have different needs. A lot of my mentorship comes from marketing, but also I find a lot of kids who want to go and study has got no view in terms of what it is, what their path is, what, where they want to be, how they see themselves. And I like to interrogate that. I know that there's psychometric tests you can do, and universities call you in and do sort of a little test and say you should follow this career and you should follow that career. in fact, did the very same mistake I did with my 25-year-old at the time when I pushed him into journalism and he hated it. He switched over to sport, to cricket and sports management, and I think it's such a important thing that even as a parent, if I can instill just a little bit of knowledge and guidance to someone, that's something that I do.
Africa is a youthful continent. I mean, it's a 30-something-year-old. If you look at the demographics from what we hear, what are you finding? The young people that you are dealing with, that you engage with, that you are mentoring. I mean, skills is a very important, but we hear about skilling for the fourth industrial revolution. We spoke about technology earlier. We're hearing about all kinds of challenges. And yet, I mean, African countries, South Africa included, Nigeria's and Egypt's and Kenya and them, there's still a lot of poverty. There's still a lot of rural Africa. There's a lot of rich heritage and stuff. What are you finding out of the challenges of these young people? What are they telling you?
So, I mean, in terms of mentorship, it was very easy. I mean, I've had, different age groups in terms of mentorship. In terms of imparting knowledge, I hate calling it mentorship. It's just imparting knowledge and empowering. It's knowledge sharing for me.
Yes.
I find it's very interesting. You should ask me just, in terms of the youth. And I understand you're saying the epicenter of the age is 31, but I'm finding quite a diverse of people. I find 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds, small businesses reaching out to me and, just want to connect. And would ask me anything in terms of what I find interesting and what I love now is that obviously, like I said, digital has allowed a lot of people to connect through their mobile devices. What I found that the mind is very digital accelerated in terms of, therefore we're thinking of how to use and maximize, digital for their advancement or into their business or into the environment. So a lot of the businesses and sort of young adults in Africa that I mentor want to go into this whole digital environment, whether it's innovation in terms of building technology or becoming the next Elon Musk or wanting to do coding or wanting to do television or content or mobile television. It's just very interesting for me in terms of where the headspace is compared to, if I have to bring it back into the kids that I mentor locally. And I also want to make it very important in terms of when I have conversations with kids in Zambia or in Mozambique or anyone, that makes contact with me, is that I also here try to instill in the kids that I mentor that South Africa is not a continent on its own. It's an African country. We are called South Africa. The narrative of us South Africans saying, oh no, I went into Africa, or I want to go and see Africa, or I want to, change that, because you are Africa and you are African, You're just living, it's just, when you look at South Africa, we have 9 provinces, there's countries. We're living on a continent called Africa. And by doing that and changing that narrative, I don't see the difference. So I don't see the difference between South African or Zambia or, Malawi, where I was, or, Namibia. I just don't see the difference. Mm-hmm. Kids are the same, but I can tell you the one thing that I found was just the sense of, that purpose, like they're very purpose driven. I mean, I'm mentoring a young gentleman now who did his master's in Zambia, and it's very difficult for him to find a marketing job. And while he's studying, he opened up he's running a small business where they do protective clothing gear, but the business is not doing great. And he wants the flexibility of trying to make the business work, because it's kind of starting to pick up momentum now that we're chatting and we introducing e-commerce into his business. What was interesting was that this young man went for an interview to become a lecturer in South Africa. So he wants to lecture so that he still has the flexibility to run his business and it doesn't interfere. So he'll lecture, and he just didn't know how to navigate through the lecturing, that interview of becoming a lecturer. So, guiding that, taking him through that, things that he can say, things that he shouldn't. And also looking at it from a perspective that when he used to be at university and he was studying, he was mentoring other students. He was giving extra classes and he was charging them. And I said, that already is lecturing.
That sounds like an entrepreneurial speech.
I said to him, change your mindset. It's all about changing mindset.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting to hear you saying that there's a lot of the people you're engaging with, the young people are engaging with the digital world. Because I remember a few years ago reading about how Africa can leapfrog the rest of the world because of technology,
Yes.
in terms of many aspects. And to hear that from you, that the young people you're engaging with are deep in that and wanting to see how they can use it.
Yeah.
Small businesses as well. As for entrepreneurship, are most of these young people thinking they want to finish what they're studying and get a job? Or is the mindset that I'm going to do stuff for myself on my own or with others? Is it an entrepreneurial mindset?
I think it's an African entrepreneurial mindset. Even locally for us, if I work with younger kids, that have just graduated, none of them actually want to go into the workplace. They would go and do their internship, but their mind is always around, what can I do to make my own money? How can I be my own person? And I'm also finding this sense of individualism. So I don't want to be attached to a company. I want to create my own. I'm finding that sense of independence, and I wish I had that when I was younger.
Yeah, I think we all do, because it can unlock so much potential.
It does.
And build a different future. Now, Shireen, as we conclude, I just thought you've shared some knowledge. You've shared some pearls of wisdom, as I call them, as we've been talking. But if someone who's like 19, 20 and is finishing grade 12, the last year of school year, and has been watching and thinking, okay, what does the future look like for me as an African? Doesn't matter where they are on our continent. I mean, what will be the things, or 3 things maybe, that you think they need to bear in mind for themselves in terms of lessons that you've learned? I mean, you said your younger self could have been an entrepreneur, for example.
Yes,
that's
I
one.
wish I was.
You wish you started like that, but you didn't start like that. You had a different journey, but it was a very rich journey.
Yeah.
What would those things be? What would you say to a 19-year-old today, African, 20-year-old African, to say, okay, I've got a future ahead of me? What are the things that they must keep top of mind?
For me, I learned, and it took me a very long time to learn that success actually means happiness. Anything that feeds your soul, anything that makes you feel like you're worthwhile is important to you. And I think do something that doesn't make you feel like you're putting effort into it, because that's your natural ability and your natural gift. It's important to have drive. It's important to, remain focused. It's important to, I can't say to you have a 2-year or 5-year or 10-year plan. I mean, that was one question I really, really hated when you go into an interview and someone says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I always say to someone, and I believe it because, it's something that we use very loosely in our day and age, that, to become an overnight success, it takes 10 years, and to be recognized takes 10 years. So even if you start in a company, you got to start at the bottom and grow from that bottom upward. So if I had to speak to a 19-year-old like I would have spoken to my son, I always say, what is it? What is your passion? What drives you? And once you have conversation with that person, I mean, it's very clear in terms of the type of help and guidance they need. Remain focused. Find your passion. It's not easily found. Make sure that whatever your passion is, that you digitize it. That you add that element of digital in there.
Right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. I always encourage people. I say, you do your degree, but make sure you add either data science or anything in there, graphic design, anything in there, anything digital, because that's where the world's moving into. And if you've not done that as part of your studies, you are going to be left behind.
Are you energized today, more than 20 odd years ago, from a marketing perspective, as you look at our continent and through your engagements with the young people that you've been busy with?
I am very energized. I am, because I think I just love the resilience of not giving up. I just love that, that they're showing that they're not giving up, and I love that. I'm also finding that, that, and I don't know, I mean, younger people, standing up for themselves, like the fees must fall, driving purpose more, in companies and corporates, making sure corporates are doing the right thing, making sure our government is doing the right thing, making sure that the land or the world is ready by the time they have accelerated into the age that, this young, though this sort of established adult race that they want to be. And they just know who they are. And I just love that. There's the wealth of experience we can instill and impart on them is guiding them through silly things, how to navigate through an interview, how to patent your copyright, make sure that you've patented your great idea. Because in Africa, I found that a lot of kids come up with this amazing innovation, and the concept that they've developed is being patented outside their country. And so they never own the IP. It's teaching them those things that they overlook. And I think it is something that, as established adults, this is something that we need to impart in the youth. Yeah, I think it's important, for me, it's always making sure that if I'm mentoring someone or someone reaches out to me, is whatever they're studying, whether it's teaching, whether it's, they're studying finance, is to make sure that whatever they're doing is to interpret that on digital as well. So bring digital into their lives. And it's important for us to do that. It's important for us to drive the narrative. I think the one thing that excites me about the youth at the moment is, when I speak to them, they just have the sense of individualism. And I love that. They want a better world. They want to create a better world for them when they become established adults, where we are. They bringing government, calling them to order. They calling corporates to order in terms of we spend, you bring money back. Also, we don't want to be attached to you. Show us value, So they're very purpose-driven in that sense. And it drives me. It just gives me this new hope of energy of a new sort of generation that is coming along, that know who they are and know what they want. The role that we can play is, if you look at the type of innovation that is already coming up in Africa, there's the car. There was I remember being on the Innovation Hub for City of Joburg when I was part of the panel. Things that just an electric toilet on a wheelchair. The danger of that, of young people creating this amazing things, is, how do we teach them how to patent these things? Because we create all the innovation in Africa, but it's copywritten or owned outside of Africa. And this is something we need to make sure that our young people know how to own what they're doing. It's just giving them the power and empowering them. It's all about knowledge sharing, and that for me is important.
Shireen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It was lovely chatting to you.
Lovely chatting to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dan Moyane. Thanks for watching our show. When you think about Africa, sometimes you think about the negative, but there's a lot of enriching, uplifting stuff that happens. And on this show, #ConnectAfricaMoyane, that's what we do. We seek to uplift. Please continue watching, liking, sharing, and commenting. And you can also subscribe to our show by clicking on the button below. Thank you.